Thank you very much for joining today's Bhagavatam class. Today we'll be reading Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse number 13. The chapter Pandavas retired timely. So we continue to hear from Arjuna. Verse 13. Tatraiva me viharato bhujadanda yugmam गांडीव लक्षणम अराति वधाय देवा सेन्द्राश्रित यदनुभावितमाजमीढा तेनाहमद्य मुषित पुरुषेण भूम्ना तत्रैव मे विहरतो भुजदण्डयुग्मम् गाण्डीवलक्षणम् अरातिवधाय देवा सेन्द्राश्रित यदनुभावितमाजमीढा तेनाहमद्य मुषित पुरुषेण भूम्ना तत्रैव मे विहरतो भुजदण्डयुग्मम् गाण्डीवलक्षणम् अरातिवधाय देवा सेन्द्राश्रित यदनुभावितमाजमीढा तेनाहमद्य मुषित पुरुषेण भूम्ना तत्रैव मे विहरतो भुजदण्डयुग्मम् गाण्डीवलक्षणमरातिवधाय देव सेन्द्राश्रित यदनुभावितमाजमीढा तेनाहमद्य मुषित पुरुषेण भूम्ना. Word to word, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Tatra, in that heavenly planet, Eva, certainly, me, myself, Viharataha, while staying as a guest, Bhujadanda Yugmam, both of my arms, Gandiva, the bow named Gandiva, Lakshanam, mark, Arati, a demon named Nivat Kavacha, Vadhaya, for killing, Devaha, all the demigods, Sa, along with, Indraha, the heavenly king, Indra, Shritaha, taken shelter of, Yat, by whose, Anubhavitam, made it possible to be powerful, Ajamedha, O descendant of King Ajamedha, Tena, by him, Aham, myself, Adya, at the present moment, Mushitaha, bereft of, Purushena, the personality, Bhumna, supreme. Translation. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradev, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with a Gandiva bow, to kill the demon named Nivat Kavacha. O King, descendant of Ajamedha, in the present moment I am bereft of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. The heavenly demigods are certainly more intelligent, powerful, and beautiful, and yet They had to take help from Arjuna because of his Gandiva bow, which was empowered by the grace of Lord Sri Krishna. The Lord is all powerful, and by his grace, his pure devotee can be as powerful as he may desire, and there is no limit to it. And when the Lord withdraws his power from anyone, he is powerless by the will of the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Dear Krishna devotees, thank you for joining today's class. In today's class, we will perform a little bit of a comparison between two of the pastimes that happen when Arjuna is in the heavenly abode. So yesterday in Kautukarna Prabhu's class, we heard about Arjuna holding his own or holding a fort against Lord Shiva himself, and Lord Shiva giving him the Pashupata Astra. And today we see that Arjuna single-handedly defeated Nivat Kavacha. Actually, Nivat Kavacha is a clan of demons. So it's not just one demon; it's like a race of demons. And he went one step further, and he also killed another race of demons called the Kala Kanyas. So we will look at that pastime quickly today, and then we will perform a compare and contrast and see what lesson we can glean from this. So actually, chronologically, the first thing that happened, the first pastime among the two is when Arjuna stays in Lord Indra's palace for 5 years, and he learns many different weaponry and skills. And Indra appoints his, you could say, right-hand man. His name is Chitrasen, to look after Arjuna's requirements and make sure that he learns whatever skills and weaponry he needs to learn. So Chitrasen is the first point of contact for Arjuna, and he still has Indra. So if you see in verse 12, we see that Arjuna was one of the only few devotees who were ever given the opportunity to sit on the throne that is almost equivalent to Lord Indra himself in a human body. So he received a crown which is known as a Kirita at that point of time, and he's also known as Kirita. That is another name for Arjuna. So what happened is Arjuna would also be part of the assembly, as he was given a throne that is right next to Lord Indra, and Lord Indra knows that Arjuna is his son, and there would be many apsaras who would perform for the pleasure of the devatas and Lord Indra. So at that time, there would be many, Rambha, Urvashi, and many other apsaras who would perform in front of the assembly. And Indra noticed that Arjuna would have a special, he would view Urvashi, an apsara, in a very special manner. So Indra Dev assumed that Arjuna wanted, he had a special affection for Urvashi, and the Apsara, you could say clan or race, were allowed to have what we call promiscuous mixing. So they were allowed to enjoy with multiple men, and they were, and in the heavenly abode, this is actually allowed. There's a higher limit to bhoga that is allowed in the heavenly abode, and so Indra tells Chitrasen that you please go to Urvashi and glorify Arjuna in front of her, and then ask her to go and meet Arjuna in the night. So what happens is Chitrasen goes to Urvashi and then glorifies Arjuna without saying his name. He says, Arjuna, is the only human who has come to the heavenly abode and is seated right next to Lord Indra in a self-same body, in his material body, not in his subtle form. And he has his name and fame are spread all over. He's the upholder of dharma, and so he glorifies Arjuna in front of Urvashi. And Urvashi, he didn't have to glorifies so much. Urvashi already knew who Arjuna was, and she was like, which woman would not want to be along Arjuna? I will surely, whether you go and meet Arjuna or not, I will surely go to meet him in the night, is what Urvashi tells Chitrasen. And Chitrasen seems like his job there was done, so he left. And so Urvashi performs a lot of alankaram, so she decorates herself in a very provocative manner. And she also wears diaphanous clothing. So diaphanous clothing means it's like clothing that teases man. And it is also said that even rishis would have fallen from their spiritual position if they were to look at Urvashi in that state. So she goes to Arjuna in the night time to have what we call promiscuous mixing. And at that time, Arjuna opens the door. So she goes from her home to where Arjuna was allotted stay by Indradev. And when she opens the door, Arjuna sees her and he immediately looks away. And he only looks at her feet. He does not say anything else. O maiden, why have you come here? How may I serve you? Is what Arjuna asks. And Urvashi, in a way, you could say she tried to seduce him. And Urvashi told him that I have come here and I'm giving myself to you. Please let us enjoy. And that time, Arjuna offers his respectful obeisances and tells her that I can only see you as my own mother, so I would never think of such activities. Please see me as your own son and protect me as a mother would. That's how he asks Urvashi. And there's actually an English playwright who says, hell hath no fury than a woman scorned. So there was a whole playwright that says, if a woman offers herself willingly to a man and the man rejects her, then there is no destruction or vengeance greater than hell, is what the playwright wants to say. And it's also quoted in some classes. Hell hath no fury than a woman scorned. But here it's different because heaven hath no fury than a woman scorned, because they were in the heavenly abode. And Urvashi's anger knew no bounds because she was the most attractive Apsara in the entire planetary system, and she had never felt the pain of rejection from a suitable male. So she asks him, she gives him one more chance, and she asks him, why do you say this? Am I not attractive enough for you? And that time Arjuna says, my forefather Pururava had married you, and since he is my forefather, I can only see you as his wife, and as a result, I can only see you as a mother and nothing else. And then Urvashi gets very angry about it, and then she curses him. You claim to be a man, but when a woman gives herself to you, you reject her. So you will lose this very manliness, and you will be a eunuch, is what she curses him. And for Arjuna, who's a Kshatriya, for him the Kshatriya blood and the valor and all the what we would generally qualities that you would generally attribute to a man are valuable for Arjuna, because he has to fight a war and so many other things. So he's a little taken aback because he followed the principles of dharma, and rather than getting rewarded for following the principles, he instead got punished, and in a manner that seemed a little extreme, because he literally followed Matravat Paradhareshu. He was able to see everyone other than his lawfully wedded wife as his mother. Yet he was receiving sinful reactions for performing dharmic duty. So he's a little taken aback. And then Urvashi leaves in a scoff. So she's very angry about what had happened, that Arjuna said no. But Arjuna took shelter to the fact that he upheld dharma in the most provocative of situations. And he goes to Indra, and Indra gives him counsel that this will only be a temporary curse, and you can actually use it to your own advantage. You can use it when you were in incognito in the kingdom of Virat. And at that time, since Arjuna was very famous, it would be very hard for him to stay incognito. Everybody would easily recognize that it's him. So at that time, this will come to use. So you need to accept it as it is. And Arjuna was pacified. But this goes to show that Arjuna was able to win the inner war. The inner war, outer war may come for some people, may not for some people. Like some people who are working there, who are given their lives in the army or navy, they may fight the outer war. But in this case, we see Arjuna, he fought the inner war. He had the opportunity. It was also allowed in the heavenly abode to have that kind of bhoga. Yet he chose to stay course on the path of dharma and say no to a provocative situation. So he was able to win the inner war. So this was one pastime that I want to cover as he was in the heavenly abode. The other pastime, as this verse says, is the outer war, where he had to fight against the Nivat Kavachas. So as the stay in the heavenly abode of 5 years was coming to an end, Arjuna was reminiscing about his time there. But he, at all times, he was always thinking of the Pandavas and Draupadi who were staying back in the forest, because he did not want to enjoy in such a way that, especially when they are suffering. So he didn't want to be the one who's enjoying the opulences of heavenly abode while his brothers and wife are actually suffering there. So he always tried to maintain a reasonable standard of living, even in the heavenly abode. And now that he had learned all the skills he needed, including singing and dancing from Chitrasen, which will come into use later, he tries, bids at you. So he says, Indradev, thank you very much for everything that you've given me. And he wants to leave. But before that, because he's received something from Indra, he says, I will offer Guru Dakshina for you. So you have given me Shiksha. So I would like to give some Dakshina in return. How may I serve you, is what Arjuna asks. So this is the Vedic etiquette. Like even now we see there are many devotees who teach for free. And as a result, they do not charge a fee. And many devotees, there are some people who just accept it and don't return anything. But there are some devotees who see that some person, brahmachari devotee, has given their time and their learnings for free. So they give some dakshina in return. And so Indra thinks for a bit, and he says there is this clan of asuras known as Nivat Kavachas, and it would be very, and they actually torment the devatas quite a bit. And if Indra were to say that they torment him, it means they're a serious threat. And so Indra says, you please destroy this clan, purify them so that we are no longer disturbed. And this time Indra gives his chariot and charioteer Maithili. So it's a very powerful chariot that Lord Indra himself uses. Actually, that same chariot was also used in the Ramayana when Lord Ram was fighting Ravana. Sometimes Hanuman would carry Lord Ram and he would fight, but Maithili with his chariot also helped Lord Ram in killing Ravana. So at that point, he takes Maithili as a charioteer, and Arjuna is within the chariot, and then they go to the Nivat Kavachas. It's a location that's a bit away from the heavenly abode, and there he blows his conch shell Devadatta. We saw in last week's class that Agni brings Devadatta from Varuna and gives it to not Agni, the Mayadana. Mayadana gets the Devadatta conch shell and gives it to Arjuna. And at that time, Arjuna blows the conch shell, and all the Nivat Kavachas understand that it's somebody asking for war. And so they prepare themselves and they start firing their arrows at Arjuna. And Maithili has been the charioteer for Indra, and he's seen many wars. So he knows how to maneuver, how to dodge, how to make sure that Arjuna gets the field of view for him to attack. And he knows all of those tricks. So he tries to maneuver the chariot, everything, and Arjuna has his bow and arrow ready, and then he has an inexhaustible quiver still with him. So he's able to fight everyone. And the Nivat Kavachas, they're in innumerable quantities, and they are actually stunned that he's not even a Devata, but he's riding on Indra's chariot, and he's able to hold us off. So we must increase our power in intensity of our fighting. So they start barraging a lot of arrows at the chariot, and Arjuna, he has some mystical abilities as well. So he has the power to blow away the arrows with a wind astra and so on. And then they see that this straight head-on collision is not working. So we must try something new, because it was an impasse. It was equal in whatever they were doing. So if you see in wrestling, there's a way to fight clean, in which you just fight and try to overpower the other opponent. And there's also a kind of a dirty way, in which somebody might take some sand, throw it in the eye of the opponent, and when the opponent is blinded, then they would overpower them. So this is a dirty way of fighting. So the Nimat Kavachas, they were Danavas, they were Daityas. They would not always follow the rules of fighting. So they try to bring in some mystical weapons to throw Arjuna off. So first they start, so they say some mantras, and then a large ocean overflows into the battlefield wherever they were fighting, and then it seems to inundate everything. And that time, Arjuna has a very specific weapon. I forget the name. It's called Vishoshana Astra. So Vishoshana means it would evaporate all of the water. So Indra had taught him that. So it seems like he's getting practice for the weapons that he just learned. So he uses the Vishoshana Astra, and then all of the water evaporates. And then the Nimat Kavachas, then they start barraging a huge, strong gust of wind to throw Arjuna off balance, so that his aim is little off. And at that time, he uses an astra by which a strong, formidable mountain is created, and it stops the gust of the wind. And then, as a result, he's still able to maintain his balance. And so they go back and forth like that. So then the Nimat Kavachas start, they cover the source of light, and as a result, it's very dark. But they forgot that Arjuna had practiced in the night. So he can shoot just by sound, he doesn't need vision. And so he's still able to shoot. And then they're actually shocked, and then they take a step back. In the sense, they actually take a step back to throw Arjuna off again. Like if someone retreats, then you might take a breath, and then you might calm down and plan your attack. So they took a step back, but they were already planning the next attack. And Arjuna also took a breather. At that time, when he was taking a breather, that's when they started another, you could say, barrage of attack. And Arjuna was slowly getting tired. And Maithili could see that. Maithili is a very formidable charioteer, and he could see that Arjuna was slowly getting tired. And so Maithili tells Arjuna that, why don't you try the Vajra weapon that Indra has given you personally? That's Indra's most formidable weapon. So you could think of it as a sort of the thunderbolt that Indra would use. It's not the same, but it's very similar. And so then Arjuna uses that weapon. And from that weapon, there are many arrows that come from that single shot. And all of the Nimat Kavachas are killed by that one weapon. So it's a one-hit KO. And all the Nimat Kavachas are dead. And Arjuna is actually, he didn't know that he could wield so much power, because those were the weapons of the Devatas. And they had immense power, and he was actually quite shocked. And Maithili was also very impressed by Arjuna. Although he was just a human being, he was able to hold off a clan of demons that even the Devatas could not. So he was very appreciative of, and he was very impressed by Arjuna's prowess in fighting. And then this also, just a subtle point I want to make, goes to show the dynamics between the charioteer and the passenger in the chariot, how they can feed off of each other's courage and enthusiasm. And these dynamics are also shown when Arjuna and Krishna are fighting in the war. Last Thursday's class, we discussed about how they fought off the different devatas, not just Lord Indra, but Varuna and many other devatas. And then we will see in the Kurukshetra war when their dynamics come to be again. And just like how Hanuman, when his role was to go and find Mother Sita, he also did some extra work in using his tail and setting the entire city of Lanka on fire. Arjuna also wanted to do a little bit extra. So he wanted to give Guru Dakshina, but go a little bit further. And as a result, Maithili tells him that there's another clan of demons who are equally powerful. They're known as the Kala Kanyas. So these Kala Kanya clan of demons, they also possess mystical weapons, and they have different types of illusory weapons. In the sense, they could, how do you call it, translocate themselves in the blink of an eye. And as a result, it would be very hard for one to predict where to shoot. And as a result, the Devatas could not aim at any of the Kala Kanyas, and they would generally fail. So Maithili takes Arjuna to them, And again, I wouldn't go into a lot of the details because that's not necessary, but there's again an impasse. So Arjuna is still able to hold them off, but there was no way for him to overpower them in any suitable manner. So then again, he feels a little disheartened that even Indra's weapon is not sufficient, because even though that one Vajra would break into multiple shots and try, they could translocate themselves and dodge the attack. So there was no way for him to have a weapon that would chase them and kill them. Like nowadays, we have weapons that sees the heat of another jet, and then it follows that along until it hits the jet, right? So there's these rockets that follow each other and hit. So he didn't have such a weapon. And that's when Maithili reminds him that the Kalakanyas are also celestial beings, and the Pashupata Astra that he received from Lord Shiva could be used. It could be only used against celestial beings. It cannot be used against mere human beings. Because if Arjuna were to use that in the Kurukshetra war, it would have been ended in maybe few hours rather than 18 days. But you're not allowed to use it in human mortal combat. You can only use it in combat against the celestials. And so when the Kalakanyas come there, he finally decides to use the Pashupata Astra, and that Astra alone has the capability that I just mentioned. It would chase even the translocated beings and then destroy them. And then he sees that he has grown so much in those 5 years. Earlier, he would only depend on his raw power and accuracy, but now he developed so many skills that he knew how to deal with mystical elements, and he knew how to strategize, how to fight, what power he reached. Everything he got to know through this. Although he was giving a Guru Dakshina to Indradev, he realized how much he's grown in those 5 years as a formidable warrior, and that gave him immense confidence that now if they were to fight the war, then they can actually win. So this puts a lot more onus on the fact that Arjuna, the Gandiva bow, was slipping from his hand when he was standing in front of the warriors. It was not that he was afraid. There are some folks who may say, oh, he may have been afraid that there's a possibility of him losing. But actually, his confidence was at its peak at that time, when he knew all of the weapons he had and all the powers he could wield and control. He was actually very confident. So it goes to show that Arjuna was actually, he had a soft enough heart to show bhakti towards the Lord, that he was able to empathize with the other characters on the other side of the war, like Dronacharya and Bhishma, who he held in such high regard that he didn't want to see them shed their blood just so that Yudhishthira or the Pandavas can win the war. And this second instance that we spoke about, that the war that Arjuna fought, is the outer war. So everyone fights two types of wars: the inner war that we just discussed about Arjuna fending off the desire from uniting with Urvashi, and the outer war that is fighting many, you could say, trials and tribulations, but also many difficulties that may come up in one's life. But it is very important that the inner war be given more importance. If you see in the Ramayana, Dasharatha is the king of Ayodhya, and Dashamukha, or Ravana, 10 heads, Dashamukha, he's the king of Lanka. And their names actually hold a lot of importance, because Dashamukha means 10 heads, but also means 10, the 5 knowledge gathering senses, and then the 5 karmendriyas. So we have the Gyanendriyas and the karmendriyas, 5 plus 5, so that's 10. The one who had 10 heads was unable to control these 10 senses, which means he lost the inner war. He could not control his lust, he could not control his anger, he could not control any of his senses. He would eat voraciously, he would meet many other things that the Ramayana describes. That obviously he would break the 4 regulative principles. He would, although he had a wife as pure as Mandodari, who was also called as a Kanya, because she was so pure that her virginity would be restored every day. And even then, he would still go after others' wives, like Mother Sita. And when we see Dasharatha, the Ratha means chariot, 10 chariots, but it also means 10. He has control over those 10 senses. That's why he was the ruler of Ayodhya. Ayodhya means Ayodhya, no war. A place without war is Ayodhya. And so, although Dashamukha was the king of Lanka, he lost the inner war, and that's why Lord Ram had to slay him. And when you see Dasharatha, he won the inner war, and because of that, Lord Ram was willing to be born in his dynasty and be his own son. So that goes to show that winning the inner war is actually significantly more important than just the outer war. I also wanted to talk about one question that Jesh Prabhu had asked in the previous class about how do we develop a seasoned intelligence to know that this is what the Lord wishes and to be an instrument in His service. So last class we discussed about pastime that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions in the Harmonist magazine about how Lakshmi Devi puts her chastity on the line to serve Ramanujacharya, and how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says this is the Parakya Ras, this is the highest form of Parakya Ras that even the gopis have demonstrated. Although hers is in the service of Guru, gopi is in service of Krishna. And how do we know that our intelligence is seasoned enough to understand that this is what the Lord wants? Because somebody can whimsically perform the same activity, right? So I want to compare and contrast. Again, today's whole theme is comparing and contrasting two pastimes of Arjuna. Then we compared quickly the lessons we get from each, and then Dasharatha and Dashamukha, that's Ravana. And now we will compare and contrast Krishna's peace treaty. So we know about Krishna going to Duryodhana as a peace messenger, and he almost being arrested and then showing his universal form and everybody backing off. But there are two subtle events that occur alongside, where Krishna speaks to Karna and Krishna speaks to Bhishma Dev. So these are two instances that show one who has a seasoned intelligence and knows how to be an instrument in the Lord's plan, and one who does not fit, who thinks dharma is more important in a certain perverted manner and then goes for it. So we will first look at Karna. Actually, Karna had taken a vow that anybody who asks him for charity, he would give them without fail. And that was a vow he had taken. So that is why when Indra had come dressed up as a sage and asked him for his kavach and his earrings, he gave it willingly. And that was actually also his downfall, because his son was Suryadev. Suryadev told Karna that if you give away he was born with a shielded vest. So that's why it's called Karna Kavach. It's a kavach that he had on him at all times. And he had earrings that helped his strength. But Indra knew that this would make Karna very powerful in the war. And he wanted to cheat Karna and get the kavach and the earrings so that he's not as powerful in the war and he can be overpowered. And he comes dressed as a sage and asks Karna for it. And Karna had made a promise that he would give it. So he actually gave it. But he knew that this is Indra, and he asks Indra for some weapons that he wants to use in the war. And Indra actually gives it to him. So in one sense, Karna had some of the weapons that Arjuna also had. In a sense, he had some. So for most part of the time, they were on equal footing in terms of their strength. But Arjuna always won in the previous situations. But this was the final and most detrimental one. If one loses, the other is surely dead. And so I think a few days before the war, he was offering his morning Gayatri and that time, Queen Kunti, she goes there because Kunti knows that Karna is her son. And so Kunti goes there and waits by the lake. And once Karna has completed his duties, he sees Queen Kunti. She's actually standing there, and it was actually very hot, so she was sweating and everything, but she was also crying. That the sweat kind of covered the tears because she knew that she had to give up Karna when he was born, because she just wanted to test whether Durvasa Muni's blessing worked or not. But she was a Kanya at that time. She was like a small child. And when the child was born, as she prayed to Suryadev, she didn't know what to do with it. And because of societal circumstances, she abandoned the child. So she didn't, until that point, until the war, she didn't want the pain of abandonment from Karna if she were to reveal the truth to him. So Karna could easily say, right, you abandoned me whenever you wanted. How can you expect me to come to you now? So she was always wary of that fact, and so she never went to Karna. But it's now is probably the last time she could ever meet him if he were to lose in the war, because either Karna is dead or Pandavas lose the war. So there's something like that. So she goes to Karna and reveals everything to him. And Karna, first, he thinks this is a trick they're trying to do to get Karna on their side. So he doesn't believe her. But he sees the sincerity, and then Indra himself says, Surya Dev himself, who's there on, it's noontime. So Surya himself says, yes, what he's saying is true. You are actually Kunti's son. And Queen Kunti requests Karna that you are actually the eldest Pandava. You please come to our side. Don't fight the war. And then Karna says something which seems like he's following Dharma. He says, why will I abandon those who were by my side when you abandoned me? Why would I abandon someone who was by my side for someone who abandoned me when they didn't need it? So he thought he had the moral high ground of um, doing the right thing. And because the Suta, they had given him shelter, and then they took care of him and helped him grow, and Duryodhana gave him whatever he needed. So Karna, although he was a Suta, Duryodhana treated him like a Kshatriya and gave him all the opulences, held him in high regard, thought of him as his right-hand man, gave him palaces, and always supported him. Even though Bhishma and Karna couldn't see eye to eye, um, Duryodhana saw to that both of their wishes are satisfied. And so he felt that if he would give them up, he would be doing a great disservice, because he would give them up for someone who had already abandoned him. So there's no saying that she would not abandon him again. So he gives a promise to Kunti Devi that I will not abandon those who have who have given me support, but I can make you a promise that you will always be the mother of the Pandavas, which means I have a rivalry with Arjuna at five Pandavas. So he says, at the end of the war, you will still be mother of five. Either I die or Arjuna dies, but you will still be mother of five. So in the war, actually, there are many instances where Karna could have overpowered some of the other Pandavas, maybe excluding Bhima, but he could have killed Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir was a warrior, but not at the level of Bhima or Arjuna. So he could have easily killed them, but he chose not to because of the promise he made to Kunti Devi. And I think in one class, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says, this kind of logic that I will not abandon someone who has given me the thing may seem like it's a moral high ground, but actually this is exactly what some extremist organizations use. Like, for example, in Afghanistan or sometimes in Pakistan as well, innocent children are given, who are in poverty, are given support and help to grow. And then they're trained as militants, and as a result, at the time when they get to decide whether they want to be part of the, whatever you call it, ISIs or whatever such organization, extremist organizations, they feel that these people have given me, my parents couldn't, like, for example, such a child who's been brought up in that situation would see that their parents couldn't provide for them. Somebody else did, so their loyalty lies with them. And this kind of thinking leads to immense destruction, not just of their lives, but also of many other lives. And that's exactly what an intelligence which loses the war. It's more like penny wise, pound foolish. They think they're doing something that is correct morally, but they don't see the higher morality that surrounds it all. And although then Krishna himself goes to Karna and tells him that if you come to the Pandava side, you are the eldest Pandava, you will become the king. You wanted a king of the whole world, not Yudhishthir. You will get that. You will get the respect of everyone as a Kshatriya because you're a son of Queen Kunti, and you will also have Draupadi as your wife. All of the three things that Karna ever wanted, Krishna gave it to him. You just come to this side. And Krishna was not tricked. I understand Krishna sometimes may trick others, but this was not a trick. He was actually giving, willing to give. He was literally telling the truth. If Karna were to come, then he would be the king. He would have Mother Draupadi as his wife. He would have everything that he ever wanted. Still, Karna had held strong to what he termed as loyalty, rational loyalty, and as a result, that led to his destruction. And we see on the exact opposite, on the other hand, Bhishma Dev, he went to Krishna and told him, I don't want to fight on the side of Duryodhana. I want to fight on your side. I want to fight on the side of Dharma. But Krishna told him, no, I want you to fight on the other side to show to the world that even the most, you could say, the warrior with the greatest prowess as Bhishma Dev, immense respect, even such a Dharma you could say, such a warrior who follows the path of dharma were to fight on the side of adharma, even he is bound to lose, even if he is the greatest of devotees. And Krishna wanted Bhishma Dev to be that instrument in his service. So Krishna went to two devotees, maybe Karna is not a devotee, but he went to two warriors, and he gave different propositions. For one, he gave such a favorable proposition. For another, he gave a very unfavorable proposition. Yet one of them had the seasoned intelligence who knew that this was what the Lord wanted and was willing to follow it. And that goes to show that winning the inner war doesn't just mean following dharma, but it also means trying to be an instrument in the Lord's hand and really putting yourself in a position where you really hear what the Paramatma is trying to say and understanding what where one's real loyalty arises. So I think it's 8:15. Although I have some more points to discuss, I will be mindful of the time, and I would like to receive. All of you are my seniors. I should be sitting on the other side, and all the brahmacharis who have dedicated their lives to Krishna should be the ones speaking. So I would please like to receive some feedback so that I can improve and be a better service to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Hare Krishna.
I have one question. When did Arjuna stay in the heavenly planets? Were they in exile?
Yes.
So you mentioned that he spent 5 years in heavenly planets, but there is a time difference between heavenly planets and the earthly planet. So he stayed 5 years in. Is it according to the earthly time or is it according to the heavenly time?
That is a very good question, Guru. It should be earthly time, because if he had spent 5 years there, the whole lifetime could have passed by.
Yeah.
We see in Brahma Vimohan Leela, when Brahma just turns away for a second and turns back, 1 year has already passed. So in that sense, it was 5 earthly years that he spent there, but he spent it in his same material body. So there.
He was in exile at that time, because when he got back, everybody else was in exile. He was in exile. So they were all in exile at the same time.
Yes.
So that was his exile, I guess, started when he got back, because they were all in exile at the same time.
Oh, no. So actually, what happened is they are in the. Actually, Narada Muni comes and gives a certain mantra to Yudhishthir and tells him, when you need it the most, these will enable one to go to the heavenly abode. And that is when they perform that yagya, or the teaches those mantras to Arjuna when they needed the weapons for themselves in the exile, during the exile. So there was a time, as I was telling in the previous class, that Lord Indra told him he will give his weapons to Arjuna, but first he has to get the Pashupat Astra from Lord Shiva. Only then he can get Indra's weapons. And then I was also mentioning that they had some small conflict. At sometimes the Pandavas would feel like Yudhishthir is being kind and submissive for no reason, and that they should actually go for the war. So this was part of the plan that Yudhishthir had, that Arjuna go, and since he had Lord Indra's approval to visit the heavenly abode, that they would go at that time. But I think it's better I fact check, and then get back to you. Sorry. Any other corrections, reflections? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Vishal.